If you had 50,000 US dollars, what would you buy? I could consider purchase this one, or the red V-Raptor XL. Here we go. Alright, today's video is pretty long. Definitely stay till the end to see the complete honest review on the red V-Raptor XL. Let's take a look at the specs first. So, to summarize, but it's not just about specs. In comparison to other reviews, I want to take this camera into a real filming scenario, instead of reading out a spec sheet. Denn nur in der Praxis fängt alles an, nicht richtig zu funktionieren. Red RAW. Let's check out why we should consider this camera in the first place. Let's take this awful shot with all the wrong settings and see if we can save it. Simply pull up the RAW settings in Final Cut. Exposure can be pulled back with the ISO value, and white balance can be adjusted as well. Feels like traveling through time and back to set to quickly adjust a mistake. This is very suitable for professional filming because every shot is expensive. With this kind of insurance, you can have a peace of mind as a DP and producer. And unfortunately, the red V-Raptor XL files cannot be recognized by Premiere yet, so this is something you have to take into account for now.
L'amour et moi, nous sommes un. Nous sommes un.
Memory card and storage. We must be mentally prepared that it will eat up your hard drive space very quick. It's all stored on a CF Express card, and you'll need to buy hard drives with large capacity for on-site backup. Assuming you have chosen raw MQ compression setting, then one day will be roughly around 1.5T to 2 terabytes of materials. MQ compression, I personally think, is the most suitable. It's kind of like a balance between quality and file size. External monitor. This one is a Red Official one partnered with Small HD. It has many functions. However, because there are so many of them, often you may accidentally pull up some unwanted features. In fact, it is quite confusing to distinguish between the Red and Small HD interface system. In this regard, I hope that the Small HD's menu can be completely turned off and it is only activated, for example, by pressing 2 buttons at the same time. So pairing this camera with the proprietary touch monitor is definitely a good choice. They cooperate with Small HD. It allows you to access all the camera parameters. This is very fluid and quick. But the angles are a bit limited. Like, I can't get it quite down there or here. So sometimes when I'm shooting on the shoulder, following someone, my view here is pretty limited. So I would definitely add an EVF to it. Alright, slow motion. The biggest highlight of this camera is 8K 120 frames per second, which is fucking amazing. In addition, if you lower the resolution, you can gain higher frame rates, all the way up to 400 frames per second. However, it should be noted that the image quality is significantly reduced after cropping in. Noise levels raise up as well. But who doesn't like it? For this shot, we pulled a bunch of equipment, especially the lights, to film it. And looking back, the excitement is hard to describe. It was so much fun. Weight and size. This camera is indeed heavy and bulky. This is also the reason why, in my opinion, it doesn't quite fit well on gimbals. Komodo definitely easier to balance. Internal ND. The most cumbersome thing about Red B4 is that there is no built-in ND filter. Shooting outdoors requires changing ND filters and attaching detaching matte boxes all the time. But now it finally has built-in ND, and you can dial in very accurate steps. Another cool thing is, because it is an electronic ND filter, it can also be controlled with a mobile app. Image quality comparison. Let's do a quick comparison test with several other cameras here. The difference may not be noticeable at first glance, especially on mobile phones. But once you film in a very complex and uncontrolled environment and the screen is slightly larger, there is still an obvious gap. Resolution. First, we need to note that this camera can record into 2 formats. So one is .r3d RAW format by Red, and the other one is .mov ProRes format by Apple. Choosing Red Raw .r3d format means that if you change the resolution from 8K to 7K, then your final file will also be 7K resolution. But if you look closely, you'll see that the area on the sensor you're using has narrowed down. The advantage is that you maintain powerful RAW capabilities and gain higher frame rate options. But if you need a quick turnaround, then rather go for ProRes. That can be saved either in 1080p or 4K without cropping in onto the sensor. When choosing to use RAW, my previous experience is that under the condition of ensuring quality, only a one time of crop can be done. Here we have the Raptor XL at 8K, and if we crop into 7K it's fine, but if we crop to 6K then we already start seeing some quality loss. This one is full frame 8K, and in real situations we may also use a lot of S35 format cine lenses. After all, those are more common, but to be honest, you have to then crop in 2 times to avoid vignetting. And when we zoom in on the computer later, we see that it's not particularly ideal. So it's best to only use it with full frame lenses. Talking about lenses, I usually, if not necessary, try to avoid using cine lenses. The quality difference in comparison to good photo lenses is almost not noticeable, and they slow me down a lot, preventing me capturing great moments. This time though, I was surprised by the DZO Film cine lens set. These are weight and size wise smaller than traditional cine lenses, and efficient to use. Startup time. Unfortunately, in this aspect, Red has never been good at it. Red Komodo is one of the fastest to boot up. Then I didn't expect that the XL is even a little bit slower than the previous generation DSMC2 Red Scar W camera. Power. In terms of power supply, it has 2 voltage modes, 14 volt and 26 volt. 26 volt ensures that you can gain power outputs directly from the camera, without all kinds of cables routed around the camera. Unfortunately, when attaching a 14 volt V-mount battery, all the power output ports of the camera gets disabled. This kind of defeats its design purpose, so I hope this can be resolved by future firmware updates. I/O ports. Well, this one has a lot of them. 3x SDI, control, eGig, timecode, audio, DTAP. There are also these 3 SDI ports. Before, I was once on a film shoot where we accidentally broke the SDI port of the camera. That camera only had 1 SDI port. We were also filming pretty far out. There was no way that we could just continue with the filming, and that really screwed up the entire production. But if you had more than just 1 SDI port, at least you have a plan B and can continue. These small details show that this camera is truly ready for high-end projects. Audio recording. Here we will need an additional adapter to be able to actually plug in some commonly used audio solutions. Menu. Menu is also very important. The most inconvenient thing is when you spend so much time just trying to find a very simple setting on set. The Raptor XL is very simple to operate. A camera assistant can easily adjust all settings from the side panel. But as a solo filmmaker, it is annoying to look to the side every single time. So I would strongly recommend to pair it with the additional external touchscreen monitor that Red officially incorporated with Small HD. This makes it easier to adjust the aperture, ISO, and other values. It is also bright enough to see the picture clearly when shooting outside, but I would still want to add an extra EVF to it. Red Control app. When it comes to the third generation Red cameras, I think the most successful part was actually the Red Control app. This remote control option is extremely useful, and you can even receive the live feed of the camera. This comes in handy. Mounting points. When your projects get bigger, many accessories have to be attached to the camera. Compared to Red Komodo and V-Raptor, this one has a lot of mounting points, various 1/4 screw holes and 50mm rod connections. And that's it on the Red V-Raptor XL. In summary, this whole experience was amazing, but I'm pretty sure now that I would definitely not purchase this camera and only rent it, and mostly just for high-end productions. It is also mentioned on the website that this one is specifically designed to deal with the studio environment setup. Really, it's so hard to describe how amazing the 8K RAW is if you haven't personally experienced it. The most memorable thing for me is that I can easily shoot the effect of a slider with 120 frames per second handheld. This is so crazy. And for small size and medium sized projects, I would definitely consider the Red Komodo or Sony a7S III. Those are more convenient, and in comparison to the Red V-Raptor XL, in the same time I can gather more footages. And this is also part of how I shoot in my style. And if you have further questions, feel free to ask them down in the comments below. To see more awesome content like this, consider subscribing and hit that notification bell. See you next time. 再见.